Sad to say, leaving this week's episode of Shadow's House, the fate of both Mary Rose as well as Rosemary has me feeling pretty depressed, not gonna lie. It's not to say that they didn't hurt innocent people, all things considered. Innocent bystanders were forced to basically take the blame of so many different things, and yeah, there's been a lot of torture, a lot of punishment because they wanted to extend their time, but I don't find myself blaming them for wanting to live longer. More so, I just come back to the overall hierarchy, the system that's in place. That feels like more of where I'd put the blame, not someone who wanted to escape, who wanted to find a better solution, and yeah, maybe it was selfish to extend their own time by hurting others in the process, but it's hard to imagine most people put in those shoes would have tried to fight and live another day no matter the cost. And it feels like next week, whether we see it or not, I don't think they're gonna live. I don't think they're gonna have a happy ending in the slightest. And honestly, death might be the best case scenario because we've already seen people get punished by having to clean sewer pipes and, contracting suit sickness, forcing the water down every which hole to just make sure they get saved and do it all over again. So maybe death is actually the most peaceful thing they could ask for after betraying the Shadows family. The thing that makes Shadow's House at this point just such an engaging show is that what is perceived as punishment and what is perceived as happiness or, you're being granted a gift. The line is very thin and it pretty much looks the same. You can look at what they ended the previous episode with, showing what happens when people don't bond with their human and the shadow successfully. They become a disgusting corpse, and it's pretty horrifying. But the fact that that is considered, hey, if you get selected to come into the next wing of the home, we're gonna merge you. We're gonna force you into a cocoon, and whether you're fit to be that or not, doesn't matter. That's either it's a punishment or a gift. But the gift, you're literally killing a human so a shadow can take over, right? It's torture, man. It's just, what is punishment? What is happiness in this mansion? It's not good. Like, you can look at Kate as an example. She's going to be turning in Rosemary, and that will clear her name, but also probably show the higher ups that, oh, she's actually not someone to completely distrust like we thought. For her victory, her reward for turning in someone who probably Kate recognizes, put in her shoes, she probably would have done the same thing if push came to shove. And her reward is to watch someone probably get a fate worse than death or just simply die. And that's not a good feeling. And that's what this past few episodes, this whole Master Rogue plotline and everything has done such a great job at, is it just makes it depressing, not necessarily because of shocking imagery, which there has been a fair few images that have been shocking, don't get me wrong. But a lot of it's depressing to know that these people deserve so much better than the bullshit that Lord Grandfather and everyone is putting them through. But how the hell do you escape? It feels like escape is good luck sort of a thing. Now, with that thought process out of the way and what the future of the season will look like, this was a pretty fun episode more often than not. There was a lot of fun tactics at play. There was a lot of cute moments. John and Sean, both of them bless their heart, whether it's Sean and just, him freaking out because of obviously the clever way they got around basically being took over. They coated their eyes and everything. Honestly, as soon as they said that's what happened, that just sounded painful as hell. You didn't need to see them squirming on the ground or basically clawing at their eyes. It looked rather painful and probably felt like worse than vinegar being poured onto your eye sockets. But the thing that was really cool is that it kind of felt like everyone had their time to shine, and Kate, who normally feels like she's kind of been in the driver's wheel more often than not, I'm glad that she recognizes without the help of everyone, her plans wouldn't have been enough to deal with this. It was kind of a team effort. I like the fact that you had the whole, John punch, which I thought was fantastic. I actually thought the punch at the very end was actually Sean just doing the John punch. But it's kind of clever how they basically disguise themselves so that they would ultimately be able to be captured, or it would look like it, and then the whole John punch could come in, use the water to take down the soot creatures, and you could tie them up before they could do anything else. Pretty clever way to deal with something that felt like she had the upper hand the entire way through, but you knew, if there's any person who's going to get turned over, it can't be Kate, right? Because she's the main character. If Kate gets disposed of, Emilico gets disposed of, where do you go with the future of the show? It doesn't feel like if that was to happen, it would happen by the end of season 2. That would have to be arcs down the line. It was just a matter of how they were going to deal with it when every step of the way it felt like they were getting the jump on them. So the whole idea of powering up with food and then ultimately just going down the river stream. I love the fact that each of the characters almost had like a moment in this episode that felt like if they were by themselves to make these decisions, they would have made the wrong decision. But because they had a teammate next to him, whether it's Kate and John or Svahn and Emilico, right? The fact of the matter was, like, they would say something and then either the other would correct them or they'd say, no, my mistress would go this way because she doesn't trust people to get help in this cave. So she'd want to deal with it herself, which is why they didn't go back to the house, but rather they went down the river stream there. It was just really nice to see that nothing felt like it was convenient. It actually felt like a well-earned victory, and because you have someone, or both of them actually, with Mary Rose as well as Rosemary, they didn't hate these characters in the slightest, right? Like, all four of them, like, they looked at it and probably were hoping that maybe they could win, and they could leave it to them and hopefully say, you know what, even though we're probably going to die here, we can trust in that they have the skills to maybe do what we couldn't. So it felt like a lesson, felt like a test, but it also wasn't going to just be handed over to them because their time was running out. Had Emilico, Kate, John, Svahn not been able to do what they needed to, I doubt it would have been them being handed over. It could have been the opposite, right? But because there was a legitimate way that they got the upper hand on them, it felt more like they could rest peacefully, like they accepted their defeat and they weren't going to put up a fight and struggle because it's not like they hated them, it's just more of, we're not going to give you that easy W, you have to prove that you deserve it for us to go without a fight after you maybe catch us or tie our hands behind our back. Like, the fact that nothing feels convenient right now with Shadow's House is something that a lot of these types of shows don't get right, where you have the element of death, you have the element of fates worse than death. How do you avoid giving characters, especially characters who have such targets painted on their back, such as Kate and Emilico, and not have them suffer bad things as all the characters around them potentially do? And these are great moments to show us that things don't just conveniently happen because of main character syndrome, and they are magically shielded because the author refused to punish them. Like, no, like, this felt like a well-earned victory on top of just ultimately having characters who didn't hate them to begin with, and they were the biggest threat that they were going up against, right? So that has me excited for what the last couple of episodes will look like. I, on one hand, hope we don't get to see what happens to these two, but on the other hand, given some of the imagery, I wouldn't be shocked in the slightest if they did show us, but if they somehow end up living and are just going to have like an eternal life of punishment, maybe there's hope to save them someday, but at the same time, it doesn't feel likely, right? So I don't know how to feel, to be honest. I feel a little heartbroken, a little depressed. Like, it's not to say they didn't do things that probably deserve punishment in normal circumstances, but knowing what we know about the Shadows family, the hierarchy, the systems that are in place, and then ultimately taking over your human's body, it's hard to feel bad or feel upset with what they did, because I kind of feel like anyone would probably do the same thing when you're trying to not only just escape, but maybe expose some of the bullshit that's going on. I mean, everyone wants to live, and when you have someone you care next to you, such as the case of this master-servant relationship, it's hard for me to say, damn, like, I wish she gets punished for that. No, I say cut off Lord Grandfather's head, right? I don't feel like they need to be punished. It's more of just the system at place, but, you know, that ain't gonna happen if ever, and if it does, it's gonna be a long time coming sort of a thing. It's depressing, but it's depressing because it's well written, not because it's just mindless shock value like a lot of shows in this kind of thriller mystery department would normally run with. I don't know where we go from here, to be honest. I heard this season should wrap up on a good note in terms of a good stopping point as we wait for a season 3, but it's depressing, it's amazing, it's Shadow's House, and what more can I say? Thoughts, feelings, and if you have any theories down below, leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you're new around here. Till next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.